ChatGPT just wrote what would have taken you 3 hours. You watched it happen in real time, the words appearing faster than you could think them, the structure clean, the logic coherent, and when it finished you sat there in front of the screen with something you couldn't quite name, not fear exactly, not anger, something quieter than both of those things, something that felt like a question forming in a part of your mind you don't usually visit. What exactly is left that is mine? Maybe you're a writer and it drafted your brief. Maybe you're a developer and it solved your problem. Maybe you're a designer, a strategist, an analyst, and you watched a tool do in seconds what you spent years learning to do in hours. And somewhere underneath the productivity, underneath the convenience, underneath the very real usefulness of all of it, that question is still sitting there, unanswered, getting louder every week. I'm not going to tell you not to worry. I'm not going to give you 5 reasons AI will never replace human creativity. You heard that. It didn't help. What I'm going to do is take you back to 1995, to a Japanese animated film that asked this exact question, before the tools existed, before the industry existed, before anyone was writing TED Talks about it. A film that went further into the answer than almost anything written since. Because the question you are sitting with right now is not a new question, it is the oldest question. The machine just made it impossible to ignore. Here is what is actually happening when that quiet dread arrives. You are not afraid of losing your job. Not entirely. You are afraid of losing your answer to the question, who am I? And those are very different fears with very different solutions. At some point, probably gradually, probably without noticing, you fused 2 things together that were never the same thing. What you do and who you are. The skill became the identity. The function became the self. Writer, designer, programmer, analyst. These stopped being descriptions of what you produce and became descriptions of what you are. And now something can produce the same output faster and cheaper. And the brain, which made that fusion without your permission, experiences this not as a professional disruption, but as an existential one. Not, my workflow is threatened, but I am threatened. Psychologists call this identity foreclosure, the process by which a person so completely identifies with one role that any challenge to the role reads as a challenge to the person. It is not weakness. It is what happens when no one ever asked you to think about who you are beneath the function. There is an older thought experiment that makes this visible. The Ship of Theseus. A ship has every plank replaced one by one over years. When the last original plank is gone, is it still the same ship? Most people find this abstract. AI has made it concrete and personal and happening in real time. If the output can be replicated, what was yours to begin with? This is the question Ghost in the Shell was built around. In 1995, with hand-drawn cells and a budget that would embarrass a modern YouTube channel. And it got closer to the answer than almost anything that has come since. The film opens on a city that doesn't exist yet. 2029, a world where human bodies can be augmented, replaced, upgraded, where memory can be implanted and altered, where consciousness is a signal that runs through flesh and machine with equal indifference. Major Motoko Kusanagi is the protagonist. She is what the world calls a cyborg, her body entirely artificial, her brain partially mechanical, her memories potentially manufactured. She is also the most capable operative in her division, the sharpest mind in any room she enters, and she spends the entire film sitting with one question that her capabilities cannot answer. If every component of me can be replaced, what is the thing that makes me me? Not her body. That is already artificial. Not her memories. Those may have been installed. Not her skills. Those can be replicated and exceeded by the systems around her. So what remains? What is the part that the replacement of every part still cannot touch? The film has a word for it. Ghost. It is not translated directly because it resists translation. It is not soul in the religious sense. It is not consciousness in the clinical sense. It is something closer to the irreducible residue of a particular path through experience, the thing that formed through a specific sequence of events, choices, failures, reversals, and insights that happen to this entity and no other. Not what you know, how you came to know it, not what you can produce. The specific accumulation of living that made you someone who produces it in exactly this way. The antagonist of the film, the puppet master, is a program extraordinarily sophisticated, capable of learning, adapting, generating, infiltrating, capable of doing almost everything a human intelligence can do, and it knows exactly what it lacks. It tells Kusanagi directly. It has no ghost. It can replicate function. It cannot replicate origin. This is the line that matters. Not intelligence, not intelligence, not intelligence, not output quality. Origin, your AI tool has no ghost. It has processed more text than you will read in 1,000 lifetimes. It can produce structures you would not think of and connections you would not make. It will continue to improve at a rate that is genuinely difficult to comprehend, and it has no ghosts. It has no specific, unrepeatable, non-transferable accumulation of a particular life arriving at this particular work through this particular sequence of experience. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What you are imagining the AI is taking is not what it is actually taking. It is taking the function. It cannot touch the ghost. Here is the uncomfortable part. The reason the AI question feels so threatening to so many people, including people whose work is genuinely irreplaceable, is that most of us have never actually separated the two things, the function and the ghost. We have lived so thoroughly inside the function that we cannot easily locate what lies beneath it. Ask a writer who they are without writing. Ask a designer who they are without design. The question produces discomfort not because the answer is nothing, but because the answer has never been examined. The identity was built on top of the skill, without anyone ever digging underneath to see what the foundation was. This is the mask. The mask is the function worn as a face, the output presented as the self, and it works fine until something arrives that can replicate the output. And then suddenly the face and the self have to be separated, and no one prepared you for that surgery. Kusanagi goes through this separation across the entire runtime of the film. It is not comfortable for her either. She floats in water looking up through the surface at a world she can process but not fully belong to. She watches a stranger in a crowd and recognizes something. Not data, not information, but the specific texture of another ghost moving through the world. She cannot explain it. She can only recognize it. That recognition, that specific, untranslatable, unreplicable capacity to see one ghost in another, is what no system built on pattern recognition has yet touched. You have it. You may have forgotten it was there. The practical shift is this. One question replaced with another. Instead of, what do I do? Ask, how did I come to do it this way? Not the skill. The path to the skill. Not the output. A specific accumulation of experience, failure, revision, influence, contradiction, and surprise that made you someone who produces this particular kind of output in this particular way. That path is not reproducible. It is not in the training data. It is not in any data set. It is yours in the only way anything is truly yours, because it happened to you and no one else. This is not a motivation speech. It is a reorientation of the instrument. When you create from the function, you are competing with tools that will always be faster and eventually cheaper. When you create from the ghost, you are doing something that has no competition because it has no equivalent. The specific pressure of your specific life arriving at this specific work cannot be sourced elsewhere. Kusanagi does not defeat the puppet master by being a better program. She engages with it as a ghost, engaging with something that wants to understand what a ghost is, and at asymmetry between the thing that can replicate function and the thing that carries origin is the only asymmetry that compounds over time rather than narrowing. Do not ask what AI cannot do yet. Ask what only you have ever done. The answer lives underneath the function. It has always been there. Go to the comments. Tell me one thing. Not what you do, but why you do it the way you do. Where it came from. One sentence. I read everything. I respond to everything. Because this is the conversation that matters right now. And most people are having it alone. Kusanagi, in 1995, asked the same thing you are asking today, sitting in front of what ChatGPT just wrote in 3 minutes. Not am I still needed, but who am I actually? This is the oldest question a human being can ask. The AI did not invent it. It did not even sharpen it. It only made it loud enough that you could no longer comfortably ignore it. And maybe, quietly, in the way that only uncomfortable things can. That is the one thing worth thanking it for.